So many people asked me about my experience with water fasting, doing a juice fast after that, and also the Daniel fast, which I do every single year. And I've taken forever, but I finally am making a video on it to share my experience, my tips and tricks, to tell you even some of the side effects that could happen and how to prepare and just know your body through the process. So I'm really excited to share that with you, and hopefully in the near future, you can pick one of the three, which may work for you, and come back and tell me how you felt and what your experience was. Let's get into it. But if you are new to my channel, my name is Fifi Buchanan. My brand is called Divine Hostess. I also have a podcast called Wonderfully Made, and I am all about wellness and self-care. It's a continuous journey. So if you look back at my older videos, did a lot more focusing on cooking videos. More recently, just a lot more chatting with you all and journeying together, focusing on mindfulness, finding new practices that help with self-care and so forth. But let's get into fasting. So, all within about a 3-month period, I did a 3.5-day water fast, I think 4-day juice fast, and then 19-day Daniel fast. And first and foremost, my reason for doing the water fast was that I was just having so much abdominal pain, bloating, discomfort. I was also experiencing some pain on my side that I was thinking might be ovarian cysts, and I've had them before, and so I was kind of familiar with the pain. Let me know if you'd like to know my story on that and how I got rid of them. But I was feeling like maybe they'd come back, and so I was like, what can I do? I've got to find a way to feel better. And one thing that's worked in the past is fasting. Abstaining from food gives my body a chance to take a break from digesting and give me a break from focusing on food and metabolize some of the toxins in my body. And so that's what I did. And now I have experienced fasting. The longest I've ever done a water fast is around 7 or 8 days. And there are a ton of different books. My first experience with fasting was through church. There was a book they recommended called The Chosen Fast. And the whole point of doing the fast was mostly spiritual. I mean, we knew that there would be some benefits as far as cleansing, but it was recommended that we all do it together, like January 1st, for whatever amount of time we thought was best, considering medical conditions, the type of work we do, and just give that time to God, not focusing on what we're going to eat and all those sorts of things. Just drink water every single day and focus on God. Now, when I read The Chosen Fast, it goes through different scriptures in the Bible and times when people fasted, how it's a time to set yourself apart, especially if you're praying earnestly for something. But then also that there's a lot of healing powers. I remember reading a story about a man who had all sorts of ailments, but he did like over 40 days of fasting, and he saw more clarity in like the white part of his eyes. He had less gray hair. I mean, it was like miraculous. And what I found interesting too is looking in nature, animals fast. Especially in times of sickness, they will abstain from food. So it's a very natural thing. And I'm bringing this up because when I mentioned to one of my doctors, he was kind of like, I don't know if that's really going to work. But he wasn't really a believer, but he didn't caution me against it. So I bring that up to say, if you have any sort of medical conditions, I'm talking even if it is high blood pressure or, whatever, anything that you may be taking medication for, or something that maybe leads to you feeling lightheaded or anything, then you need to talk to your doctor first. And it's not so much that you need permission, but you need to consult with them and say, would you advise me to do this? And if in the end your doctor is like, no, you need to take your medication and that medication needs to be consumed with food, then stick around, because when I talk about the Daniel fast, that might be a better fit for you. Another consideration is if you've never fasted before, if you've never gone 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours without food. It's not to scare you, but you need to know what you're up against going into it. It's also important to tell the people closest to you that you are fasting. That can be helpful to you in case anything goes awry. They may notice, or they can be there for you, or they may not, want to offer you food during that time. That could be a temptation, or inviting you for a long hike because you might not be up to it. And some people are. It's not everybody, but some people can be 19 days into a water fast and go for a 6-mile hike. Not me, but some people. And so doing your research, preparing ahead of time, like for instance, if you want to do a fast and you're 2 or 3 weeks away, that gives you time to just prepare your home, prepare your mindset, prepare your schedule for you to actually do that. And I think that's super important because if you fast incorrectly, you can end up in the hospital. It's not a light thing. I don't want to be one of those people that comes online and tells you like, oh, go online, go and fast and it's going to cure all your problems and there's no dangers to it at all. No, there are dangers. Some people have high blood pressure or low blood pressure. There's so many factors to consider. However, there are a lot of ailments that many of us are dealing with on a regular basis that could actually be helped by fasting. It could help to remove some of the toxins from our body and balance our hormones and different things. So for spiritual reasons and for physical and health reasons, my mental health, I see the benefits. And how often do I do it? I typically do it once a year. And that really works for me. But if I don't feel well, I'll do it more frequently, especially if I see that abstaining from food or choosing to do, one of these types of fasts that I'm going to go into will help. Then, even though I love food, going 2 or 3 or 7 days without it when I have the rest of the year to eat and have fun and consume is worth it to me. Okay. I know you're going to want to know the answer to this, and it is, when I was fasting, did I lose weight? And if so, how much? The answer is yes. Naturally, if you're not consuming food, you're going to lose some weight. So I think I lost around 7 or 8 pounds, and it wasn't water weight. I mean, it was actually because my body was, eating from the storage on my body instead of me consuming food. And I think the other thing was I really just felt inflamed. Now, let me tell you about my water fast. I planned to do it ahead of some medical exams that I had coming up to do an ultrasound so I can take a look and see if there was, in fact, an ovarian cyst. And they recommended, so that there'd be no obstruction of the view, because I was doing the transabdominal one instead of the transvaginal one. They said, well, why don't you do like a 12-hour fast? Well, since I was feeling these other forms of discomfort, I said, well, I think this is a perfect time to do a water fast. By the time I go in for the exam, that'll be like day 2, and then I'll have one more day and I can switch over to food. So with a water fast, I had a certain date in mind, like a Sunday. I had a super busy week. I also had to go out of town really quickly, and I basically just lost track of time. And so when I got back home, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was eating some pumpkin pie. I remember, because this was in, I think, November. I was eating pumpkin pie, and I was just, all of a sudden it just hit me, oh shoot, I'm fasting tomorrow. And I had all these meals prepped in the fridge, and I had eaten kind of like junk food the whole day. This is not advisable. If you are doing a water fast, everywhere you read, the blogs, the different books, any videos, even on here, you will find that people say to gradually stave off, that hunger and appetite for unhealthy foods by gradually eating healthier and healthier. And I know it's kind of like, it seems a bit like something you wouldn't want to do because you're about to agree to just only water. And so most people might want to like eat all the things that are their favorites beforehand, but that actually makes the detoxing process a lot harsher. So you don't want to do that. You want to actually eat healthier. So had I remembered, I wouldn't have had the French fries that night. I wouldn't have had the pumpkin pie. I would have had like more of a sensible meal of some kind of protein, plant-based protein, maybe some brown rice. I would have maybe had tea. I just would have been gradually thinking about Sunday morning, I'm not eating. So instead, it was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night on Saturday. I put all my meals into the freezer because I was like, I don't want to waste food. And I prayed and I went to bed. So that night was when I began the fast. That morning I got up. Of course, I was fine because I normally do a modification of intermittent fasting. And so on a daily basis, I typically eat between the windows of 11 a.m. and about 7 or 8 p.m. So waking up at 8 or 9, I felt fine. Now, what's happening in your body at this point is when you first fast for that first 24 hours, your body doesn't really know what's happening. And if you're a person who skips meals, you might feel like you normally do. But slowly but surely, your body begins to switch over and say, okay, we're not getting food, so we're going to have to eat from the fat on this person's body. We're going to have to use our storage. So as that process begins, you may not feel the best. Now for me, I definitely, every time I fasted, almost every single time, at some point I get headaches, and kind of reminds me of like PMS headaches. And there could be a connection there because with PMS headaches, it's a hormonal imbalance type of thing. And we're in different rates and our body's in different modes when we're eating versus when we're not. But neither here nor there. The point is that it's difficult having headaches when you're deciding to fast. So you're abstaining from, taking a Tylenol or whatever. If you choose to fast, my tip would be to make sure that you don't have a lot going on. That's why a weekend, if your work schedule permits and your life permits, could be best. Because the headaches just may come out of nowhere, similar to, like I said, PMS, or similar to someone that is stopping smoking or cutting off caffeine. Our body just kind of is a little bit like, we don't know what's happening here. You could also feel weak. You could also feel a little bit dizzy. Like for me, I tend to have low blood pressure anyway. And so when I'm fasting, I have to be even more careful about how quickly I get up or anything like that. Now, around the second day going into the evening, that is when it was really tough. I started to feel so cold. And that's something that I've noticed happens every time I'm fasting. It suddenly just feels like, oh my gosh, I just can't get warm. And so I'm usually wearing like warm socks, loading onto blankets, sometimes turning on the heater, just to kind of just adjust, because at this point my body is sort of adjusting to that mode of burning up the toxins and also using my fat storage to fuel me. Now, I didn't do what I did in the past. I think maybe the second or third time I fasted, I was in college. So I was walking around this gigantic campus. I was going about my normal day with no food. So I was so exhausted. This time I stayed around the house. I actually put all of my voiceover clients on hold. I made it so that I had nothing else to do except for allow my body to heal. And I definitely needed more sleep. I was perfectly fine going to sleep at like 8 o'clock at night and waking up at 6 or 7. It was like I needed a ton of sleep. And I also liked it because there were those restless moments when I started feeling like, I wish I was eating. And sometimes you think you're being productive by saying, well, let me plan what I'll eat when I get done fasting. So that was definitely challenging. As far as the hunger pangs, I definitely felt them. Not the first day, but going into the second day, I definitely felt my stomach growling. But at the same time, I didn't feel a weakness like, oh, I really need to eat right now. And when I felt like I needed something, I consumed water. And what I find is during a fast, I actually need more water than I normally would. So being my size and weight and age, normal day would be somewhere between 65 and 75 ounces of water, including exercise days, unless it's a day that I sweat like excessively. But during the fast, I felt like I needed 100 or 120 ounces of water. I also did tea some days, no caffeinated teas because I didn't want to make myself more anxious, and I didn't add honey or sugar because I never really do. But that sort of occupied me and gave me some flavor. Tea was also helpful because there were times when I just felt like my tongue just had a lot of toxins sitting on top. So in addition to, mouthwash and brushing my teeth, having some mint tea was really nice. Different teas. I also had like hibiscus and dandelion root tea, just depended on how I was feeling. But it was nice to warm me up, and then it was nice to kind of cleanse my mouth. You definitely, especially if you've never fasted before and you've had a lot of toxins in your body from dyes and artificial flavoring and processed food, just, normal stuff that can be part of many people's diets around the world. The cleanse, definitely you will feel the change and the shift happening. Now, another good thing to talk about as far as fasting is like using, going pee and like bowel movements, like how did that go? For me, I went into it knowing I have digestive issues. I have all of these allergies. I'm suffering off and on with, being constipated and that sort of thing. When I did my water fast, I remained constipated. And it was the strangest thing because even though I did eat kind of junk food for me, I definitely still consumed a lot of fiber, still had my smoothies, still had a lot of veggies, but I noticed that there was some constipation. But what I was reading just from my research is constipation could also be connected to depression and anxiety. And it's interesting how holding on to certain emotions and stress can then affect our digestive system. So I was so sure that as soon as I began fasting that I would be able to let go of all of that. I was starting to feel better, but no, instead I stayed constipated. And so basically over the 3-day period, didn't have a bowel movement at all. And some people were like, oh, well, that's normal because you didn't eat anything. Well, not really, because I ate something the night before. And so that shouldn't have happened. And so as I was doing the water fast and preparing for doctor's appointments, I was doing further research to figure out what else can I do to release this. Is there something herbal I can take? Called my doctor, and my doctor said, 3 days. We're not really worried yet, but when you come off your fast, you could take a stool softener and you can let us know. So what ended up happening was at the 3.5-day point, I was definitely ready to break my fast, but I did not feel ready to bring in food. Now, let me go back and tell you, the pain in my abdomen had gone away. I did not feel the pain anymore. I didn't have the sharp pains. I didn't feel like I was going to throw up. So that had gone away. My stomach was also really like, I don't know. I feel like bloat is not the right word, because I think sometimes that could be like fluid. But it before, my whole abdomen and my whole like GI tract, everything just had a lot of gas. And that was actually why the doctor mentioned that I should fast, so that when they do the ultrasound, they can see everything. When I fasted, that began to go away slowly. So first day, started to go down. Second day, it really went down. And so because I was getting a lot of benefits from taking a break from digestion, I really wasn't ready to introduce food. And the best way to break a fast is usually something light, like vegetable broth, something clear, something light, and you work your way up to food. I was simultaneously doing research while I was fasting and figured out that a juice fast would be best for me. Okay, the juice fast. Now, juice fasting is so controversial. When I started researching it, I was struggling because you have anywhere from people like me who are wellness content creators to actual doctors to people who have a PhD in nutrition or in something related to wellness saying that these fasts are great. And then other people saying, no, they're terrible. And then we know there are documentaries of people doing juice only for a month or 2 or 3 at a time and it curing some of the diseases in their body. And it's confusing. It's like, how can this be? I mean, is it worth it to do a juice fast or not? What is it? Just expensive, vegetable juice that's wasting my money and my time and I'm going to be hungry. What is the point of all this? But very similar to the water fast, I still felt like, even though at this point you are waking up your digestive system by consuming something, you're still giving yourself a really big break. Juicing, which I've noticed people use juice and smoothie interchangeably. I don't know why that is. They're not the same thing. A smoothie has all of the fiber and more of the nutrients than if you do juice, then you are maximizing some nutrients, but you don't get that fiber and you don't get those calories. Here is where I can see why people say that juicing is a scam. Some of the companies that provide these juice cleanses, you might pay $100 or $200 and you get all the juices you need for 3 days or 5 days. Some of them, when you really look at the ingredients, it's just what I consider for play. Like, it's not real. I mean, it's so sugary that it can't possibly be that helpful. So the color of the juice might be green, and of course it may mention that there's spinach in it, but then it also has pineapple or peaches or all these other things that are super sweet. So you go to turn that bottle around to see the sugar content. Some of them had like 32 or 38 grams of sugar per bottle. And if you're supposed to consume 5 or 6 of those a day, my goodness. Now, yes, sugar from fruit is certainly healthier for you. That's of course. But it's different getting a bunch of sugar from a juice versus getting a bunch of sugar from, like ice cream. But you're still getting a lot of sugar, and that is a bit much for your body. And so I had to do a ton of research to find juices that really worked for me, that were mostly green, hardly any fruit in them. And to sort of arrange that in a way where I could consume, it was recommended to do about 6 or 7 per day with the program that I did, but I couldn't do it. It was way too many, like 7 in a day. I felt like, okay, if I'm only awake from like 7 a.m. to 8-ish p.m., I'm literally having to like drink one, wait an hour, and then drink again. And it's a full 16 ounce. And I still need to drink water on top of it. So the first few days, I really only did like 3 or 4, and I worked my way up in the end to about 5 or 6. And so I started my morning with like a celery juice. Then a couple hours later, I did a green juice that was a little more yummy because it had ginger and a twist of lemon and maybe one fruit like a green apple, something like that. And then somewhere in the middle of the day, I did one that was a bit more elevated with sugar, maybe had like 2 different fruit in it, still a little more on the green side, and then went back to 2 more green ones. And I think that would be it for the day. Again, I don't really want to tell you which brand I use because by the time you're watching this video, I don't know if they'll have changed their ingredients, and it's not sponsored anyway, but just definitely keep track of how much sugar is in your drinks. I was trying to stick with ones that were like 10, 8 grams or less. Carbs aren't bad, but I just didn't see the point of doing this strict water only fast and then switching to these like fruity juices that like don't really feel like a cleanse. Immediately upon consuming juice, I started to feel better, more energized, more like I could start to feel a little more warm on my own, although I still did need like a lot of sweaters and different things. I felt like I could move about a lot more. By then, it was like 5 days in, I still hadn't had a bowel movement and I was super concerned. So that's when I chatted with a friend who works at a wellness center and they sell a lot of different herbal remedies. And I started taking magnesium oxide, which worked amazingly. Like from now on, that's just in my repertoire that like I'm always going to have that in case I'm ever feeling particularly constipated. I did say earlier, I do think that the constipation was connected to that emotional healing that needed to also happen with just feeling a ton of anxiety, dealing with depression off and on. It can definitely affect your GI system. It's such a tough thing because, you know, when you go to the doctor and you're saying, well, I have abdominal pain, and it's hard to know, is it something food related? Do I have an ailment? Or is it something connected to my mental health, and which part do we treat first? And so that's why I was saying in the beginning, it's great to check with your physician on the fasting so that they're kind of knowing your total health and everything that you're doing to help yourself so they can really come up with a plan that really works for you. So about 2 days in, I was feeling fantastic. Like I said, I did 4 days total of the juice cleanse. I was starting to feel energized. I was able to do a little bit of yoga by that point, run some errands and not feel like I was going to pass out. I was still going to sleep early, but part of that was just protecting my mind and heart from feeling bored and restless because I was fasting. When I'm such a foodie, I love to do creative things around food. And so that being taken away left a lot of extra time in my schedule. And so at that point I was like, you know, I'm just going to start sleeping early so that I don't even feel distracted by thinking about it. But I must confess, I don't know which day it was, but there was a day that I did feel extremely like just bored and just telling myself, well, these are all the healthy things I'm going to eat when I'm done fasting. And I ended up going on this snack website and ordering like over $100 worth of snacks, healthy snacks, but still it was ridiculous. When they came, I was like, who's going to eat all this? And what was I thinking? So I did do that. So my last fast that I did was the Daniel fast. And if you haven't heard of the Daniel fast, many Christian churches do it. It's not something that was, you know, mandated by the Bible, but it was inspired by the story of Daniel and how he chose to be disciplined and abstain from the very rich foods that the king was giving to soldiers and choose to eat nothing but fruit, vegetables, and seeds for 21 days. And he asked to be tested on that. And he said, see, if I'm stronger and more disciplined than the other soldiers, then you would let me continue to eat that way. So, you know, just summarizing, it was an active discipline. And so a lot of churches, including my own, when January 1st comes around, they'll say, hey, let's do a Daniel fast. Let's kind of reset for the year and kind of take the focus a little more off of food and onto our spiritual health. So although it does restrict the way you eat, it can be fun to kind of just walk around knowing, hey, I'm eating a little better, I'm eating a little healthier, I'm starting out the year right. And then I also think that even though the Bible verse actually talks about just fruit, vegetables, and nuts, I don't think there's a reason to be overly restrictive that way. Many of us have requirements for protein and fiber and different things. And so if you literally just limit yourself that way, you may not feel full and you may not feel great. And so although maybe, let's say, brown rice wasn't on, you know, the list, then I will consume those things. I've even seen people asking ridiculous things online, like, well, Daniel didn't anoint his head with oil, so should I wear lotion during that time? And it's like, I mean, the point is not for you to be unhappy and ashy. The point is for you to be focused on the Word of God for that time, your spiritual health, being a little more disciplined, and really having a vision for the year, being able to talk to God and to be able to journal and do different things to say, you know, what is planned for me for this year and what maybe I can do different for this year. So with that being said, I will share some of the things that I ate. I've really been big on buckwheat cereal instead of oats because I'm allergic to oats. And so if you consume anything that you're allergic to, big time inflammation. So I consume buckwheat groats, which I cook the same way you do oats, but they are slow cooking. So it usually takes about an hour. So I usually make a really big pot and I'll freeze half of it. And then the other half I put into individual containers. I'll have that sometimes 5-6 days in a row. And I'm totally good with that because it's something that I know I digest well and it tastes good and it keeps me full. Another thing that I'll do is nori wraps, and I will just fill it up with sprouts and just raw veggies, avocados. I will make some sort of dipping sauce with it, and I will allow myself to eat as many as I need to get full because it's just not a lot of calories when you're consuming, roasted seaweed paper and veggies, maybe fruit, whatever you want to put in there. So I do that. I also do a lot of like brown rice and veggie stir fry dishes. This time around, I was planning for 21 days versus last year I was planning for 21 and I ended up going like 40 days because I felt good. But then I realized, I'm saying the point of this is about connecting with God and it's not about restriction and being so legalistic, but somewhere around along the way, maybe like the 15th or 16th day, I felt like I was being restrictive. And so I just had to slowly say, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing it just to say that I did it because I do it every year? Am I benefiting from it? Am I focused? And around the 19th day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to step away from this. I did 19 days. My body feels good. It's not like I plan on ordering a pizza or anything crazy, but I do want to step away and, not go further beyond what is beneficial to me. Now, let me tell you about the way I restrict for the Daniel fast. No dairy, no animal products, no refined sugar. The refined sugar one is definitely challenging. And so what I do is I do a lot of replacements with, fruit and veggies when I can. So for instance, when I was eating my buckwheat cereal, I would sweeten it with dates or berries or dried fruit and nuts, just different things. So it was all about just getting natural sugar from the earth, mashed banana, anything like that was super helpful to me. Although some people do absolutely no oils, that doesn't work for me. I'm making stir fries and different things. I use oil. I use really good clean oil, a really good like avocado oil for most things. I also go light on salt. I don't do no salt, but I will go lighter on salt, which is good because from eating out or just the way we season our food, sometimes we can build up this like immunity to the taste of salt. And so we don't realize that we're having way too much salt. And so during this time, it's a chance to really reset my taste buds. And why that is fun is because once you reset your taste buds, 3-4 days of low salt, you can really taste your food so much more. It's incredible. So I'll do that. I also try to do only whole grains. So although if I'm in a pinch, maybe I have to eat out or something like that, then I will consume white rice because I'd rather not starve. But if I'm cooking at home, then I'm going to do brown rice. I might mix it with quinoa. And then if I do like a pita bread, then I will choose pita that is whole wheat. So just thinking about different ways that I can get the richest amount of nutrients in every meal. And also still consuming a lot of tea because it's cleansing and it was keeping me warm. And that's pretty much it. With the Daniel fast, there's a ton of information online for it. So if you're looking for recipes, there are so many. And I think that if you're thinking about, well, which fast should I do? I've never fasted. I do think the Daniel fast could be beneficial because you're still consuming food. You're just switching to mostly clean food and, getting away from some of the processed stuff that really isn't great for us anyway. It just happens to be convenient. But just like the other fasts, you need to prepare for it. I think what makes people fail when they do a cleanse or a fast or a diet is the lack of preparation. So now you're hungry, you're frustrated, you're tired, you need to eat, and you don't have what you need. So you end up saying, well, I'll just not eat, which is not a good option, or I'll just eat whatever's available, and it might not be along with that diet. And so I think once you have listened to this whole video, which I think it was kind of long, but I just felt like it would be better to put the whole thing all together with, in one video. Do your research, know yourself, know your body, know your lifestyle, and really give yourself some grace. If you plan for a 7-day juice fast or a 21-day Daniel fast and that doesn't work out, there's no need to be hard on yourself. Just reflect on the days that you were able to do it, what benefits you got from it, how your body's feeling, and then think about maybe doing it again later. If anyone has any more specific questions about the fasting experience, let me know in the comments. I will either reply there or I'll do a reply video. I just feel like there's so much that goes into fasting and our different symptoms, and you might be thinking of something and I didn't cover it. So definitely let me know so I can be helpful to you and answer your question. But I'm going to keep emphasizing that you really need to do your own research because nobody knows your body like you do. And I will say that fasting has really changed my life and helped in so many ways. I've had so much less pain. The ovarian cyst was present. By the time I got the ultrasound again, it was gone, which means that the way I was eating and the different changes I was making was helpful. I will continue to do it, once a year, where I bring that in as a time to cleanse and reset my body and really evaluate the things that I'm eating and to find a way to reduce inflammation. And so I hope this video was helpful to you, and I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed the content. You can also let me know in the comments what you'd like to hear about next. And also to invite you to my Patreon community. The Patreon community is called Wonderfully Made, named after my podcast. And there you will find all sorts of wellness and mindfulness content. As a storyteller, I will use every method I know how to just bring you along on this journey with me for self-discovery, setting better boundaries, finding ways to relax at the end of the day or find a moment of calm when we really, really need it. And so you'll get bonus episodes of the podcast, video content, me just having really candid conversations with all of you, and the book club. The absolute best part about the Patreon is the book club. Right now we're reading an incredible book, but we always choose and vote on really incredible books. And then we go live at the end of every month to talk about the book, what we did and didn't like, and, who we resonated with. And it's really, I've always been a bookworm. This is really encouraging me to finish more books every year, because there's definitely a time when I was buying books and then I would just stop and start. So check out the Patreon. There are different tiers you can join for as little as $3 a month. It's a really great way to support me, but also to just join a very safe community where you can grow together and be free to be yourself. So I hope you'll join that. And again, thank you so much for watching.